Hello, everyone. I'm Sebastian, Senior Content Designer, and with me today, as you can see, is Bartek Antoniak, Head of Cloud at Vertuslab. Vertuslab, with its 12 years experience, is a strong partner in software development and has key knowledge in various areas, such as custom software development and cloud-native services. This is why we gathered here today to share our knowledge with you. And I'm happy that so many people participate in today's webinar, How to Overcome Cloud's Fundamental Challenges. Make sure to stick around for the Q&A at the end of the webinar, where we will answer your questions. Best way to do so is to write your questions on the Q&A chat. We'll get back to them once the presentation has ended. If more questions come up after the webinar itself has ended, you can reach us directly on LinkedIn. With no further ado, Bartek, could you present to our viewers what's on for today?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi everyone, this is Bartek Antoniak, Head of Cloud at Vertuslab. Thank you, Sebastian, for the introduction. For me, it's been 5 years helping customers to achieve more in the cloud, and I want to share some essential challenges in the cloud ecosystem we face on a daily basis when working with our clients, and the best we do to overcome them. This presentation is based on my personal experience, of course, what we see in the industry and what we see when working with our clients. I hope you find it useful. Vertuslab is a software engineering company, so we have holistic approach to solving complex technology and business problems. Together with our business partners, we help them with digital transformation scenarios mostly. And I would like to start with this statement. Why to listen? Why listen to this? Why talking about challenges is important? Because a lot has been said about benefits of going into the cloud. There are many articles on the internet, many working methods, products, technologies, whatnot. However, not many of us face the truth or really admitted that there are many challenges along the way. It wasn't that successful as we initially thought. And instead of scaling up, we really scale down. And we all want to reach the potential of cloud ecosystem. That was the promise of cloud, right? Promise behind public cloud, efficiency, public computing, and now how we can make it work. And as part of this presentation, I want to talk about two challenges in particular. The first one is how to overcome public cloud complexity. And the second one is how to bring developers up to speed and how to upgrade developer efficiency. This is the first presentation of the webinar series. So next time we'll be covering more interesting topics. And of course, every cloud environment is different. So I'm looking forward to having conversation with you, what challenges you see in your organization and what solutions to these problems you already have. I started my career as software engineer. I was always interested in distributed systems, cloud computing, security, automation, networking. So soon after, I transitioned my career towards cloud engineering. And I was lucky enough to be involved in early days of cloud native technology, all these emerging trends in these fields like Kubernetes, containers, infrastructure as code. But to be honest with you, I still find it unexplored. And so far, I specialize in areas of making cloud simple, helping customers adopt cloud technologies, increasing efficiency, adopting some solutions at company scale. I build platform for developers. This is to lower entry barriers to the cloud. And I do my best to keep up with latest trends in cloud native technology landscape in particular. It's tough, but the thing is I have great people to learn from on Vertuslab. And, life is a struggle, especially when being a manager and being responsible for something bigger than you. That's why I truly like overcoming challenges. And I would say that this is part of my day-to-day work. So if you would like to know more, if you would like to talk to me, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. This is my email address as well. And before we get start talking about essential challenges in the cloud ecosystem, I would like to clarify a few things, and this is part of navigation within the subject. So I would like to ask you, where are you going? And this is about your vision. Uh, I talk to companies and often hear that we want to go cloud, we want to innovate. This is just a vague idea. Is it the right thing for your business? How far you want to go in this journey? Um, and I think it's really important to deeply understand where are you going and why are you going there, and then realize that vision. Of course, it might be challenging due to some political dimensions in your company, lack of expertise, lack of people, or just as simple as securing exec sponsorship for this journey. Lastly, business and cloud strategy should work together. These two should be complementary, should be aligned, because cloud strategy is really a small component of business strategy. So that's why it's important to have a sense of direction here. Once you have an idea, where are you going and why are you going there? You need to build the business case. We need to understand, what do you want to accomplish? What's the business outcome here? In some cases, it might be cost optimization as a main driver. It might be enhancing security or something bigger. But the thing is, we need to understand the direction so we can optimize for this. And this leads us to the conclusion that effective strategy is what about is critically important. Not everything what everybody does or wants to do. Effective strategies are designs of coordinated actions aimed at overcoming specific challenges. So as you can see, it works nicely with our presentation today. So we understand, we have the sense of direction. We understand the business case, and we understand challenges, and now we can build a strategy to overcome them. The first challenge is quite foundational. Likely, most of us will face it during early days of cloud adoption or adopting some, technologies in this ecosystem, and this is overcoming public cloud complexity. One of the first observations we see is shadow IT. For those of you who are not familiar with this concept, shadow IT is a concept in which developers build their own solutions to get the work done because the current solution wasn't good enough, wasn't compelling, and properly designed and deployed can bring benefits. But on the other hand, it puts our company at significant risk of data protection or just inconsistent approach to doing the same thing, because we have a group of people who are trying to achieve the same outcome, doing it differently, and from the cloud division perspective, we have zero visibility into it. What can go wrong here? So this is where shadow IT typically arises by building cloud landing zones. This can often result in complex network architecture or too high security requirements. So teams don't really know how to deploy the first workload in the cloud because there are so many obstacles along the way. They don't understand the standards, security requirements. And also, in addition to that, traditional ticket-driven processes that are slow. It takes several weeks to get the work done or resolve a simple issue because this is manual or a semi-manual process underneath. For example, like imagine the team that want to go live with their new app, and they want to basically they need to get TLS certificate to expose this to the customer, and this is manual process. It takes week or even more, and in result, the lead time to production is extended by this time. And also establishing processes around onboarding and access control that support enough self-service is critical these days. Because if we don't do it, development teams will figure out how to do it, around the system, and it puts us at significant risk, especially in highly regulated industries. And also, the risk of shadow IT has increased recently because employees are working from home on insecure networks. So we have to pay a lot of attention to this problem. And moving on to adopting the cloud uh, the right way, how do we manage this journey? I used to think that adopting cloud is kind of multi-dimensional decision tree, especially if you have some third-party products, technologies, or if this is multi-cloud environment we are living in. The complexity grows exponentially, basically here. So that's why I highly recommend building something like this diagram. This diagram represents Azure Compute Decision Tree. It's relatively simple. At least this is a flat. But if you can do this exercise at your end, you can understand what options you have for your teams. What's the strategy? What's the workload placement decision tree? It can help you a lot to navigate in unknown, basically. And every time when we build something new or want to enable technology in our organization, we need to be aware of the fact that adoption takes time. And also, in some cases, you need to change the strategy depending on the different maturity stages along this journey. And this diagram represents technology adoption lifecycle. The first group represents innovators and early adopters. These are typically more experienced engineers, risk takers, willing to adopt a new technology. So we shouldn't be worried much about working with these people initially. However, the second half, uh, consists of early and late majority. This is more challenging to facilitate adoption in this area. It requires the actual social proof. So you need to prove your solution is worth the effort. It works in production. And in order to do that, you need kind of success story. You need transformation leaders. You need many different things that are not needed early on. And interestingly, in case of skeptics, adoption happens when there is no other solution on the horizon. The biggest challenge is to transition from the early market to the mainstream market. And this is called the chasm. So at this stage, we should really pay a lot of attention and probably change our strategy to adopt, to facilitate the adoption. And following structured approach might help here. For example, all major cloud providers maintain their own flavor of so-called cloud adoption frameworks. It's worth having a look, especially to understand all these different steps. And also, this will help you to understand what kind of expertise you would need along the way. And also, this can help with building a clear division of cloud functions within your organization. For example, on the left-hand side, we see AWS, AWS adoption framework. This is very structured and pragmatic approach, I would say, but it identifies specific organizational capabilities like people, governance, platform, operations. The middle one is from Microsoft Azure, and this is process-oriented approach. It shows the actual adoption journey, which consists of multiple steps. So you have these four major steps on top, and below you have three steps that can help you operate in the cloud, can help you keep going basically and secure and operate. And the last one on the right-hand side, this is from Google, and it's very human-centric. This is basically structure around people, processes, and technology. So you can use these frameworks to make an assessment of your company readiness to the cloud. Moving on to the cloud enablement, we see a common pattern within companies that struggle with cloud enablement. At first, they usually lack of consistent technology strategy and effective communication, especially between different technology departments. It's often the case where there is a gap between infrastructure and application space. These people not necessarily talk to each other. They don't share the same goals. They don't use the same tooling, the same patterns. And this can result in not taking user experience seriously from the infrastructure perspective. So a nice example is designing policies, whether this is compliance policy or security policy. Potentially, even a small policy can have multiple side effects that can affect our application teams. And without proper testing from the end user perspective, we can basically impact the lead time to production or slow things down, to put it simply. And also, off the shelf technology might not always work in your company. And sometimes we need to consider build versus buy approach. Of course, this is, complex domain, but depending on your, expertise, number of people you have, whether this is a business critical service to build, you might consider this or that. Once we are there, we need to keep the lights on, keep cloud secure, operational, and maintainable. And one of the few things we see here is that teams lack data, especially they lack data to manage their costs. So they really need the right tooling to identify resource waste. They need enough insights to optimize their existing infrastructure. Without this, it's barely possible, and we expect them from it. And cloud overspend is probably one of the biggest factor of digital transformation these days. And another big thing is infrastructure lifecycle management. This is a big source of toil. The developers have little time and incentive to make it less painful, basically. So they don't understand how to upgrade software in production without downtime. And also, this work is not visible because this is non-functional work that doesn't contribute to the business value. And some people prefer to stay with the old legacy software version. And also, security, also significant factor here. Teams don't have enough data to manage their security level. Especially, they don't have enough insights because most of the security alerts are just false positives, let's say. And without the context, without the insight, what does specific alert mean? You can't really resolve, and you end up with a situation where teams, try to gain the cloud score. They want to maintain the good level of security, but this is fake security in my opinion. And solving this will likely make the biggest impact on business goals. What worked for us really well some time ago was forming an enabling team. In order to do that, you need to identify go-to people in your organization. I believe you already know who they are. They are visible, they contribute, especially outside of their current project space. And everyone wants their time. And these people should have dedicated time and autonomy so they can help other teams overcome obstacles. They can keep quality bar high, build reusable solutions, or establish company-wide patterns. And it's worth looking at specific personality traits. For example, people who easily adopt to changes in technology and procedures. They are fine with taking risk and very proactive. And I would recommend to do it early, even before you build a cloud center of excellence, because this is how you can cope with skills shortages. So relatively small group of people can overcome big challenges in your organization. And this is the case study with one of our clients. This represents, let's say, 3 years of work. And as you can see, you have this, multiple layers built on top of each other. So initially, we built the foundation. So just enough groundwork to make the cloud usable within organization, let people deploy some basic constructs, upskill them in the area of the public cloud. And eventually realized that with 100 plus development teams, there is a lot of duplication, especially in infrastructure space when it comes to the infrastructure as code. So together with this enabling team, which I was mentioning earlier, we started internal open source initiative to build reusable infrastructure as code building blocks and make everything community driven so people can contribute, can identify missing capabilities. So we established a full developer community around that, and even people from different technology domains could bring their own ideas and make module out of it, basically. Um, and after some time, we also realized that there are people who struggle connecting the dots, right? So basically, they didn't know how to build production grade infrastructure based on these reusable building blocks. So we came up with an idea of building reference architecture, show them how they could look like. And this is the paved path for developers to production. So it consists of diagrams, recommendations, as well as baseline code base, which development teams can use and deploy production, create infrastructure within a day or two as a good starting point, of course. For less experienced teams, we decided to centralize some areas of the infrastructure and technology and all these integrations just to lower entry barriers to the cloud for them and let them focus on application space only instead of managing the life cycle of the infrastructure. Everything was managed by the central platform team. And as beyond that, our ultimate goal is to go with developer experience as a service. So you might probably heard about engineering enablement trend, which is quite well known these days in the cloud market. Um, so this is something that helps you, use all these good things we built in the past and fill gaps in technology, help us keep up with the latest trends, latest products released by cloud providers, using modern ways of working and company-wide collaboration. So all these people work together, share solutions. This is what we are aiming for at the moment. Okay, this is the second challenge I would like to talk about. This is how to bring people together and bring them up to speed, and why this is really important challenge to overcome. Um, well, cloud projects always take longer than you expect, always. And the first reason is yak shaving. So every time you start a new task, there is another one to be done, and so on. It's often called rabbit down to the rabbit hole. And it reminds me, building production grade infrastructure involves thousands of little details. And the vast majority of developers don't know what those details are. So when you're estimating a project, usually forgot about these critical and time consuming details. And as a solution that is, pretty much naive here, uh, might be like do enough to unblock what you are currently working on. Otherwise, you can end up with creating more yaks. Another great example is the fourth breach, uh, which represents the endless details. So when you think it ends, you have to start again. And this is BBC story. The expression like painting the fourth breach was coined to describe never-ending job one which takes so long that when you have finished it, it's time to start again. So after 10 years and more than 100 million of pounds, the bridge will be finally free of scaffolding, at least according to the press release I read. And I believe it does ring the bell. We can easily relate this to our existing cloud projects and number of details we need to think of. This slide represents our study we've done within client organizations some time ago. The main reason behind this was to answer the question whether we want to centralize infrastructure or keep it decentralized. By decentralized, I mean continuing with you build, you own it fashion ways of working, or just centralized infrastructure and let development teams focus on building application instead of infrastructure from bottom to top. And we realized that it takes up to 3 weeks to finish day one activities like onboarding, setting up access, or just running the first pipeline, bringing new joiners up to speed within the project. Interestingly, they spend up to 60% of their time managing infrastructure, specifically around, upgrading, scaling, and, general maintenance. That's a lot of time invested into non-functional work. And in terms of migration, it takes from 2 to 6 months. That's okay. We can live with that. However, teams reported that they need migration support. So we can't just tell them you have a year or two and you need to migrate from place A to place B. We really need to support them along the way. We need to unblock some things like connectivity, access control, patterns, and all of that. And depending on the team structure and expertise you currently have in your organization and team, the time spent between app work and infrastructure work can vary. But it's kind of, nice exercise to try to measure this, and you will see, I bet you will be surprised. Another great fact is companies investing in developer efficiency outperform others in the market by 4 to 5 times, especially when it comes to technology companies. To put it simply, they do better here. So that's why we should really invest into developer efficiency area. In terms of the current landscape of the developer efficiency, we see emerging trend of building internal platform for developers, both centralized and decentralized. I mentioned earlier. Developer Experience Portal is a great solution to make your developers' work visible and especially build kind of incentives around contribution outside of their current project space, because we all want to encourage our engineering to collaborate, to exchange ideas, to build something that is reusable. And Spotify backstage model might be a nice candidate to consider here, or something similar. The lead time to production is a key metric to measure. You really want to know how much time does it take to go live, especially understand where's the bottleneck and how to optimize it. And enabling teams, which I mentioned already a few times, this is the concept borrowed from Team Topology's book. These people play a crucial role in modern cloud engineering space because the problem space is massive. And you need to have people who are all in and have dedicated time and autonomy to do the right things. Slowly finishing our presentation, I would like to put a strong emphasis on continuous improvement and educating your organization. I know it probably sounds obvious, but there are many different ways we can achieve that, and I believe you already have your own solutions. But what I wanted to say is, if we do it right, if we really let these people collaborate, they have dedicated space, they can share knowledge. There are no any gaps between them, between technology departments. Only great ideas will happen. In terms of key takeaways from this presentation, understand where are you going. This is about your vision and how far you want to go in this journey. Avoid shadow IT in your organization. Cloud platforms should support users first. Build structure around people, processes, and technology. Follow structured approach to adopting technology, adopting cloud, making things at scale. Cost, lifecycle management, and security make the biggest impact on business goals. So these areas I would strongly suggest to focus on. And this is pretty much all when it comes to my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer a few questions as well as have a conversation with you if you are interested in understanding more. If you want to talk with us, please reach out to me or Pavel or Sebastian, anyone from the Virtus Lab. So again, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Over to you, Sebastian.
Bartek. Thanks very much for this insightful information. So we would like to open up the Q&A now. So you have two possibilities. One is you type it in the Q&A box, or the other one is you ask them in question. So we definitely have one now. So Bartek, the question is, what topics you plan to present next time?
Thank you, Sebastian. So as this is the first installment of this webinar series, of course, we have plenty interesting topics to cover next. The one which is, on top of my head is I would love to talk about multi-cloud and multi-tool in particular. And we can have a look at this from the organizational perspective and the complexity related to that. And also we can talk more about, down to earth, more about technology. For example, how Kubernetes can make multi-cloud strategy simple, or what are the deployment strategies, whether this is GitOps approach, which is quite modern these days, or how to make it work, how to make the cloud agnostic. So this is definitely something on top of my list. And I'm also interested in hearing more from you. If you have some topics we can cover, I'm more than happy to do my homework and even bring some people from other companies, from other technology department at Virtus Lab, and we can talk about this.
All right, Bartek, thank you. There is actually one question that goes towards this topic. Why no case studies and numbers regarding projects?
Well, the simple answer is like we can't disclose this, sensitive information that much, especially when it comes to finance data, because these days it's quite easy to relate, with all these clients we are working on, and basically if you are interested in talking about specific case studies from Virtus Lab, or you would like to understand numbers, I'm more than happy to organize a separate call, or you can specify your question. So maybe I can share something if you're interested in this. I hope my answer helps.
Yes, Piotr does have a question here. How do you find the big three: Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure in comparison to DigitalOcean, OVH, Linode, or Hetzner?
Well, I would say it depends on the scale of the project, and it depends what you actually are trying to do. Of course, if you would like to have more managed services, for example, you want to have Kafka, or you want to have a upstream version of Kubernetes, and you really want to have people to reach out for help, I would definitely go with these big players on the market. To be honest with you, I don't have much experience working with DigitalOcean or these compute providers. Rather, some simple use case like spinning up a VM, very basic infrastructure for simple use case. So if you have online shop or something, that might be the option for you. But if you really want to have high availability, geo-replication, disaster recovery, and the latest technologies on the market as a managed services, probably I would go with this big three, AWS, Azure, and Microsoft. Of course, there are some pros and cons between them, but that's my answer. I hope you find it useful.
Thank you, Bartek. Any follow-up questions? All right. Good. If there aren't any questions anymore, or they might come up later after the webinar has ended, you can always contact us on LinkedIn. And well, basically, thank you for your time. Thank you for the webinar. Bartek, thank you very much for putting this all together and presenting the information. And like Bartek said, if you want to have more detailed insight in case studies or numbers, you can always reach out to Bartek, to Pavel or me, and we'll definitely can find some space and time to talk about this.
Of course,
So,
I'm more than happy to talk with you, and thank you very much for all these questions, and thank you very much for taking time and listening to this.
So if there was something unclear, this has been recorded. So if you'd like to rewatch the webinar, we will definitely send you a link later. And we'll like to invite you to take part in our survey about this webinar. We will share the form in the chat so you can give us your opinion. And of course, once again, if you have any questions relating to software engineering, case studies, what we do, feel free to contact us anytime via LinkedIn. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Take care.